Welcome to this episode of Money Matters TV. I'm Kelly Stewart, founder of The Positive Business, and I am joined today by a man who has his finger on the pulse of commercial banking, Paul Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Great intro. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's good to see you again, Paul.
Yes, indeed.
We haven't been together on the show for a while.
Okay. We have a topic we were thinking about discussing in front of our audience and all. And
Yes.
I think the word we use is, some people say that the paradigm has shifted.
Yes.
What does that mean when we talk
Right.
to our audience?
Sure. So I think a lot of the paradigm are the sets of beliefs that we hold true about something, whether that's leadership, business strategy, how we do business. And we're seeing a lot of those shifts take place now where it's time to kind of maybe challenge some assumptions, reevaluate what we thought was true or what's worked for us in the past and say, is that still relevant today?
Things change, business changes, society changes a bit also. And I think, this is a show about money and business. So, what are some of the perspectives you've had from yours personally and maybe from some of your clients
True.
regarding these changes?
I think one of the things that comes to top of mind is how the role of leadership is really being redefined. Now we're in a time where, of course, change happens very quickly, but there's a lot of expansion going on and new opportunities that can either be met or new opportunities to create, lots of which are technology enabled. And I think that instead of the traditional leadership role where the leader has to have all of the answers, I think now it's more important for the leader to know where to go find knowledge, insights. Lots of times that's in the organization, and how to surface those things because, of course, the leader's still responsible for the vision, right?
And
this is where
your
we're
role
going.
in your business is consulting with business owners or business leaders.
Yes.
And talk about some of these issues.
Right. Well, and I think one of them is for them to become most comfortable with being a little bit vulnerable. And this falls under that very broad category that we hear a lot about today, which is emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right.
EQ.
And so,
EI.
exactly. Yep. You're in your emotional quotient. Exactly.
Quotient.
Exactly.
There you
So, and the best description I've ever heard of that, because it's a pretty broad topic, is it's being smart with your feelings. Right? So it starts to put it into perspective right away. And I think, again, for people who have been in business for a very long time and who have had the responsibility of having to have all the answers, it puts them in a vulnerable space to ask a question of their team, maybe of vendors or suppliers to which they don't already know the answer. But when they can do that, what they find is they tap into many ideas from people who are close to the work. And, I kind of think it's similar to being in school. When I was in school, we didn't have access to the information, the volumes, and the instantaneous information, right? So you just approached your work differently than they do in schools.
One of the thoughts that comes to my mind is that TV show, I'm not sure if it's still on, but for a few years, The Undercover Boss.
Oh, right.
Maybe he'd put on a disguise and he would go out into the workforce and find out all kinds of things that were invaluable that he or she should have known.
Absolutely. That's a great example, Paul. It's a great example because that's what you're trying to do. And you can't be all things to all people, right? So you can't be running every functional area and there's just too much going on. Right. So yes, you could do Undercover Boss, which would be a lot of fun. And or you can bring these meetings, the people together, and really it works best today when you bring people at all levels of the organization in all different phases of their careers because someone always has an idea.
So do you need to go out on a retreat or take a weekend and everybody gets together and goes kumbaya, or how does that really work?
You can, and in some cases you have to. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If there's really a deep strategy that has to be formed around a really strategic initiative, breaking into a new market, something like that. But if you're looking to enhance your relationships, that can happen every day, and just in the way you talk to people and putting yourself in their shoes.
That's a key word, is the relationships, because it's all about dealing with people, whether it's employees or clients.
Exactly.
Your peers,
vendors, your community.
Yeah,
Look how important the community is now for a lot of businesses. That really wasn't something that was talked about as much, but it is. And how
here's another example of these type of changes. I'm a trustee of a nonprofit school for special education.
Oh, sure.
Mostly autistic kids and other, children with and adults with intellectual problems.
Sure.
Traditionally, their market was sort of high-functioning autistic children.
Right.
They found now that the market is becoming some of the more difficult children that tend to be maybe not violent, but certainly
Right.
more behaviorally challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And the teachers have to learn to adapt to that. Some of them need more training. Maybe
Right.
some of them don't like it.
Yes.
But there's a need out there, and the organization has to be able to change. And again, they can't just do it on their own because they haven't really done it before.
Right.
They've got to talk with other people, bring in, get more training, whatever.
And you bring up another area of emotional intelligence because I think it dovetails into this, and that's around diversity, equity, and inclusion. What I find, and I hear other business leaders talk to me about too, especially in a larger organization, is what a welcome surprise some of these insights are, because they are coming from very different perspectives that one person can't singularly really have that experience that maybe somebody's having on the front manufacturing line, or somebody who does the social media who's really very close to that is going to have a different perspective just from the nature of the job, let alone all of these other things like gender, race, religion, all of those things that go into making that human, right? So they bring their own kind of perspectives, insights to that can be very helpful.
Here's a question for you. How does that come across in a job description?
Well, I'm going to go back to the way I heard it. It's about being smart with your feelings. I think a lot of it comes about having high quality personal relationships, and then how does that organization define high quality? I think it's about having personal awareness around just what you say and how you say it. But excellent question, because it's probably not as well defined as it could be.
These are soft issues. The
Right.
job description typically is just filled with hard issues.
Exactly.
Technical expertise,
Right.
years of experience,
Right.
that type of thing.
Right. And you called to mind, I heard someone recently say, soft skills are hard to do, right? And they can be in this context. We know how to do them a little bit better in our personal lives. But I think that it's something that's being redefined right now, and we will see more of it.
So how do young people get this experience or get this attitude or whatever you want to call it of these soft skills?
I think typically they're a little bit more plugged into it just by the nature of how they've grown up in schools, and the technology that they had and the way they've had to work together in teams, which reminds me a job that I had about 15 years ago. I was in a job where I had to learn a lot about the education market. And we had a client come who had a great science STEM program, but it was also project-based.
STEM is?
Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Ah, okay.
Right. So it was a wonderful program. It was all based on the science of motorsports. It was very cool.
Motorsports.
And part of it was project-based learning. And I really just could not get close to that. It wasn't, the light bulb wasn't going off for me. And one morning, I was walking into work, and I just was picturing myself in a classroom with those children running this program. I thought, I now know why I don't understand project-based learning, because they called it cheating when I was in school, right? We did not work together like that. And so I think that's another example of how they already have had such a different experience in school that it's going to naturally tee them up for some more of these things in the way that they give and receive feedback, in the way they support one another. So I think these are all great questions that you've had. Thank you for asking.
Well, I've been around for a while and I've seen some changes. I've seen some paradigm shifts.
and so this would be probably a shift from a lot of us are used to things being a little bit different.
Sure.
But it's good. It's good to change, dust off those neural networks and get them fired up in different ways. I think that's awesome. So, well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
And actually, this question is from our viewer, Mary Oberton in Philadelphia. And Mary wants to know, is e-banking safe for the user?
Excellent question, and it's been around for a number of years. E-banking is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. I guess the answer is generally yes. There are two aspects of it, though, at least two aspects. The one is, you said that for the user, okay, the user is me, I'll say me, the customer,
Yes.
okay? So I am getting it on my computer. How safe is my computer?
Right.
Okay, now I'm accessing the bank's computer system, if you will, in layman's terms, okay? How safe is that? Well, Banks are very concerned about that. They spend a lot of money on that kind of technology. They use outside consultants, et cetera, et cetera. So to the extent that they feel that they're secure.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
May not be still. But going back to your own computer, that's where it all starts.
That's where it
so
starts.
So a bank can't be held responsible for that.
Great
Indeed,
point.
if you read the small print on your agreement with the bank about e-banking,
Right.
some of the small print may be a little discouraging. I mean, you're at risk, but if you report something to them in a reasonable time frame, whether it's, I don't know, days or whatever they specify, you're going to be a lot safer.
Okay.
So one of my biggest recommendations is, if you're e-banking, check your balance every day. I get from my bank, I sign up for my balances on my accounts every day.
Okay.
And then I can look at my transactions.
Right.
No big
That's
deal
great
on my
advice.
phone.
Right.
It's very simple and it's very friendly.
Great advice. Another layer of protection and good awareness around that. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. So if you'd like to send your question into Money Matters TV, here's how.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Welcome back to Money Matters. I am so happy to have our guest on today, Bill Sprague, president of Risk Averse Insurance.
Yes.
Welcome, Bill. It's nice to meet
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Love to have you here.
I love the name, Risk Adverse.
Yes.
It's a great name.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
How did you come up with that?
It's funny, I get that question a lot. So risk averse is a term that's typically used in the financial sector to describe someone that's, avoids risk in their investments. So it being a commercial insurance agency or brokerage, most of our clients are business owners, and their business is their biggest investment, right? It's their sole source of income in most cases. It's their nest egg for retirement.
Sure.
So we want to work with them to make sure they're not taking any unneeded risk and therefore being risk averse. So, yeah.
How many different types of insurance then do you provide to the business owner? I know fire and life, but
yeah, so we do a lot. We do commercial property, commercial auto, we do home and auto, but we also do workers' compensation, professional liability, directors and officers, employment practices liability.
Wow.
There's lots of them now, lots of specialty lines now that we work with.
And is that different than from when you might have started in the market? All these different lines?
Some of them are becoming more prevalent these days. They've all been around since I've been in the industry.
Okay.
One of the big ones that is really spiking in importance is cyber liability. I mean, you mentioned it in the last segment,
Right.
with the banking, but cyber liability is a big one these days.
Sure.
There are a few things specifically with cyber liability. You hear all the time about the credit cards being stolen.
Oh, yeah.
Look what Wawa's
well, the
going
information
through.
about the credit cards.
Right. So
Cards
you
in your pocket, but the information is
Sure.
out there
Information's
somewhere.
Right. So Wawa just lost, millions of numbers. That's a big one that you hear about. Some that you don't hear about so much are, ransomware or social engineering. And ransomware, what that is, it's basically, you open your computer one day and someone says all of your data is locked up. Unless you give us 25,000, 100,000.
Right. And you have to pay that like in Bitcoin or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And traditionally, something like that wasn't covered by an insurance policy, but these days you can get a good cyber policy
Right.
that will cover those risks.
That's
So,
good.
and it's not as expensive as it used to be. I mean, I think people that looked at it maybe 5-10 years ago were like, oh man, this is unaffordable, I'll take the
Right.
risk.
Yeah.
But these days, that's not the case.
Does a business have to do something special to increase its resistance to such a liability in order for you to insure it, or can they just keep on doing what they've been doing the last 10 years?
Yeah, so depending on the industry, in the financial sector, the application will be pretty thorough. Underwriters are going to be looking for a lot of security, a lot of backup, things like that.
Wow.
other industries, you might not have as high a risk for losing financial or personal information. So the application may not be as thorough.
Right.
You might not need as many things in place, security
Sure.
measures in place. So
That makes a lot of sense, and I think I'm happy to hear that it is more affordable, because I think going back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I just think the way we think about it now is different. It used to be something that it was kind of, it was this dreadful thing, not that it isn't still,
Sure.
but the change, I think, is in people kind of expect. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to small companies all the time. I mean, they're an easy target. The ones that you hear about are the big companies,
Right.
unfortunately, but it's happening to the small
Right.
companies
And they
as
have
well.
protocols in place. They've done, I'm just going to guess, they've done a lot of what they can do to guard against that. No one wants that type
You
of
would, you would
Absolutely.
think, but how come
Press,
these
right.
incidents keep coming up with big companies?
Right, yeah.
And again, they're
They're
going
still
to
learning.
come up. It's just a matter of you have coverage when they do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
those costs can be significant, and for a small business, you may not be able to sustain it. So it's good to have
Right,
some coverage in place for sure.
right.
Bill, as an insurance person, I hear you're an agent or you're a broker or whatever, but how do you spend your day? 8, 10 hours a day or 16 hours a day, whatever it is.
Yeah, sure. So the big thing that we do, we work with the client to develop an insurance program, right? It's not just give me your policy, we'll match it. We like to sit with the business owner, clients of ours, get an understanding of what their business is, what they do, and what are the risks associated with that, right? And then we build an insurance program surrounding that, and we take that program and we go out to market with it, and we quote it with various carriers.
Are
And
you an agent or a broker?
broker.
Or what's the difference?
A broker. So an agent would be essentially an employee of a company, right? So you think the State Farm,
okay.
Allstate,
Okay.
they work for the carrier, the insurance carrier, where a broker has contracts with various insurance carriers. And we like to say that we work for the client, not for the insurance
Right.
carrier, right? We're doing what's best for you, not what's best for our boss.
Right. You're
right?
providing that invaluable service of the shopping,
Correct.
right? And
Correct.
taking the time to really understand that and bring your expertise to what then
Absolutely.
would be a best fit
Right.
for your client. And
Yeah, and one of the benefits is that because we can work with so many insurance carriers, we have a lot of specialty carriers or markets where we can find an insurance company that matches your specific industry, and because of that, they're able to provide more competitive pricing, better products that are more specific to what you do. So there are a lot of valuable
very,
things
yeah.
to being a broker.
How,
right?
how often do you shop around for your clients? Every year, every 5 years? How does that work?
Sure. So it really depends. Rates are always in flux, so rates can change, but typically, we'll keep an eye on it each year, but we try not to shop it every single year. And the reason is because if you get a reputation in the industry as a shopper, right? If we're just blasting it out to every underwriter under the sun and not writing the business each year, they're going to see that business come in. They're not going to give it their best effort.
Sure.
Not going to give it their best pricing. So we like to give it a few years to develop, show profitability, and then we'll bring it out to market. And underwriters will be beating down your door to write the piece of business if you've been profitable and shown some loyalty to a carrier for a little bit. So we don't shop it every year. I don't think it's in someone's best interest. But again, there are times where prices increase, things change in your business. So we'll absolutely take that out to market each year. So.
What got you started in insurance?
So no one ever grows up thinking, I'm going to be in the insurance industry. I kind of fell into the industry right out of college. But I've found that a lot of the skills that you learn in the industry are transferable throughout the business world. So, right now, in the next few years, I think some estimates say that about 30% of people in the industry will be retiring or reaching retirement age or traditional retirement age. So for younger people that are looking to get into an industry, there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the coming years for some of those higher level jobs. The industry's transitioning a little bit to more of a tech focus. They're behind the curve traditionally. The insurance world is behind the technological curve.
Little risk averse.
A little risk averse, right? So they are trying to catch up, spending more money in the tech world now. So people that were avoiding the industry in the past because it was kind of archaic, I think you can get in and find some positions now, that are more tech geared or tech focused.
How does a young person start out in the insurance business? I mean, what I've seen, and I'm not an expert in it by any means, it's like, great, okay, it'll take you a while to get a stream of income from commissions.
Sure.
For heaven's sakes, I mean, what? In reality, a year, 2 years, 5 years, in the meantime, you're living off nothing, you're living at home, or what?
Yeah, so as a salesperson, it absolutely would take some time. I was fortunate to come in a service position, and I was able to develop a book of business and develop relationships while I was being paid to service a book of business.
Okay.
So you don't have to enter as a salesperson per se. You can get a service role, an account management role. There are other ways to learn to get in the industry as well. I mentioned technology is growing within the industry. There's also risk managers, which not only are working with insurance carriers, but working in big businesses, and they have risk managers on staff. You have underwriters, actuaries, all those things. So there are a lot of entry points to the insurance world.
So it sounds as if someone wants to get in, there's a broad skill set then, like they can have different types of skills.
Absolutely.
Do you think there's an overarching skill that would serve them well, or just?
It depends on the role. So I think if you're that extroverted, type A personality, sales is for you, right? Start when you're young. Take your lumps when you're young, because as you get older, it'll really pay off, right? If you're more of like the introverted, want to put your head down and just plug away, there are lots of service roles, maybe even like underwriter assistant roles where you're not doing a lot of client facing. If you're more analytical, you have your actuarial or underwriting. So there are a lot. There are a lot of positions that you could have throughout the industry.
When the internet was going through its boom, a lot of it was filling in for the intermediaries, the insurance agents or brokers. That was the concept.
Right.
So why have these people when you can just go on the internet, have that whole layer of expense gone?
Sure. Yeah.
Did it happen, and did it change the industry, or?
Yeah, so over the last, I'd say, decade or so, a lot of agencies thought the sky was falling. The agent is going away. There were a lot of investment money was going to online direct type carriers. You think the Geico's and all Progressive and things like that. What they've found is only a small percentage of buyers actually make the purchase online. They want to go on, and people are very informed these days. They want to go online. They want to know what they're buying. But ultimately, they want to seek the help of a professional that knows the industry. They don't want to be they don't want to be an expert. They just want to know enough to be dangerous. So that has backed off a lot. You're seeing some of the traditional online carriers that are merging in with the brick and mortar parent companies, and they're just rolling under one umbrella, because I don't think there's the value that there once was. Yeah, and I mean, you look at a guy like Warren Buffett, right? He owns Geico, and that was traditionally an online platform, and now he's opening brick and mortar shops, right? So I think that he sees the value in the agent or the broker. And he's made investments in other companies as well, USLI, Apogee, which are all service the independent broker channel. I think that the future is bright, and all the people that think that the sky is falling, you can sleep well knowing that it's not going to, or agents anyway, right?
Awesome, wonderful. Well, on the commercial side of things, then, what are some of the either common questions you get or some of the misperceptions? Because I think on the personal side, and I agree with you. We just had, my husband and I moved, and we had to switch carriers because our insurance company, who I had had for a long time, did not cover where we were moving to. And it really was helpful for me to have someone on the phone. I had a lot of questions. But on the business side of things, what do you see as some of the common questions?
So on the business side of things, one of the big questions I feel like I always answer is, and it's more of a comment, insurance or business owners will typically tell us, I don't need to carry workers' compensation. All of my people are 1099 employees, right? They're subcontractors. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. So, 1099s and W-2s, are tax forms. But if someone's injured while working with you, the way a judge is going to determine if you should have been carrying coverage is how much control do you have over that person, right?
Oh, okay.
So what it comes down to is, are you telling them when they have to clock in and clock out every day? Did you train them?
Right.
Are you the sole source of income for this employee? If the answer to those things is yes, you should absolutely be carrying workers' compensation, whether you're paying a
Right.
1099 or W-2.
Okay.
A true subcontractor relationship would be somebody that they have their own insurance. They're working for you on a contract or project basis. If that's the relationship, then yes, you probably don't have to carry workers' compensation. But you'd be surprised how many business owners think that you just don't need to carry
You
it
don't need
because
that.
I'm going to pay 1099.
What about the gig economy? We still hear a lot about that. So how does that factor into how you might advise business owners or the person who has several gigs, right? Like, how do they cover themselves, or how do companies cover them?
Right. So there are a lot of carriers, part of the insurtech world, I would say, that a lot of companies are providing products that are like pay per use.
Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for everybody,
Right.
but if if you have a gig position where you're just doing odds and ends,
Right.
It may work for you. But if you have a brick and mortar, or even
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing every day, it makes more sense to have an annual policy. But there are absolutely solutions out there, and we don't handle any of them in particular. It would probably be more of like an online platform
Okay.
where you pay like every time you need it. Let's say like every time you have a project or something like that.
Okay.
Bill, as we get to the end of our interview, a very important question for you, very important to our viewers.
All right.
Do you have any tips for our viewers that will help them obtain a competitive price on their insurance when shopping?
Absolutely. So work with a broker that you trust. All right, find someone that you trust and continue to work with them. I think a lot of people think that you can go out and you shop the business every single year with 5 different brokers, and that's how you get the best rate. I mentioned earlier that's not the case because you get a
Right.
reputation as a shopper, and people don't give you their best effort. The underwriters don't, brokers don't, because they don't feel that they're going to win the business, or they won't have it for very long.
For very long,
There's no true
right.
relationship there.
Right.
Um,
Kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier, like the quality of the relationships. So
Yeah,
great tip.
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So if you can stick with one carrier for a few years and show that you've been profitable with them, have the right the risk management in place. Everyone has losses, but if you can keep them to a minimum,
Right.
and underwriters will be beating down the door to write your business.
Can you ask your insurance agent, broker, whatever, of ways things I can change my business to make it less expensive for insurance?
I don't know that there's.
Sounds like a big
tr-
question
yeah,
for our
right.
last
Well,
one.
I have a little time left. I'll throw it out there.
Yeah. No, I don't know. We do get a lot of, are there workarounds? How can I bring this down? But bottom line is, especially on workers' compensation, the state will determine what you do, and they're going to classify you accordingly in a lot of cases. Or the underwriter, the insurance carrier will inspect and classify you accordingly.
They
So
will inspect, they'll come to your place of business?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. On certain size accounts, not on small accounts,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And there you have it. So Bill has brought us good news
Yes.
and talk of opportunity insurance
Yes.
in the insurance field. So thank you very much, Bill, for being on the show.
Thank
We've
you for
really
having me. I
appreciated
enjoyed
that.
it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Always
Ms.
wonderful
Stewart, my
to
pleasure.
talk with you. Thank you very much. And we hope that you'll join us for our next show, when our guest will be Brent Weiss from Facet Wealth. And until then, be well and expect good things from all that you do.